Earlier this year, the Federal Reserve conducted a thorough investigation of an Amazon facility in Virginia, looking into the company's massive cloud services as part of an antitrust investigation into America's tech giants. Around that same time in April, Paige Thompson, a 33-year-old hacker in Seattle, stole near the data of nearly 100 million customers of credit card applicants from Amazon Cloud Storage. Amazon Web Services is the biggest provider of cloud services, holding nearly 50% of the market in 2018. And with a more connected world, incredible amounts of sensitive personal information is kept on the cloud. While cloud services makes life a lot easier, putting access to your banking data at your fingertips or allowing speedy financial decisions, what are the risks? To look into this, we're joined by our cybercrime experts, Vera Software President Todd Shipley and forensic investigator Hiram Delamo. So starting off, Hiram, let's start off with a simple one here. With all the personal banking information being stored with third-party vendors like Amazon Web Services, it begs the question, how secure is the cloud?
Well, we must first, answer the question as, what is the cloud? And the cloud, all it is a repository, or it's a shared of resources where corporations have cut costs in their IT and have moved all of their resources into the cloud. The issue that we're currently having now is that it's still the responsibility of the company to protect that data, and I think in many companies that has been set aside and have thought that by going into the cloud that the cloud is protected. The cloud is only protected if the company protects its data. In this particular case, the cloud has provided the capability of not only going into Capital One, but possibly going into other companies that have the same type of shared resources.
Now, sorry, go ahead.
So Todd, this third-party cloud, which is facing security threats, is it really safer than companies having their own data contents?
Well, I think that's been the argument for a long time. Is the cloud any safer? As Hiram just said, it's data stored someplace else. Do I choose to have the servers in my own company that I have to secure and maintain, or do I buy that service for somebody else? And that ends up being the problem. Once we start giving away our data and having it stored someplace else, do we have control over it? Do we know what that security is? And in this case, it was the connection between Capital One and the Amazon servers that was the problem, and Capital One didn't have it configured correctly. Amazon should have known this and blocked them from coming in, but they didn't, because this has been a known security problem for a long time.
And Todd, when we look at the Capital One example, it took nearly 3 months for them to find out about the breach. With the cloud being the point of failure here, don't these providers have a way of knowing sooner about breaches like this?
Well, you'd think they would, especially with the amount of data that got transferred, that Amazon would have said something to Capital One about the movement of data, but they didn't. So the issue becomes now, who's at fault here? We're not sure. There's going to be blame for everybody, but everybody has to look at this as a much broader problem, that this problem still exists and has not been solved. And you have to think about it too. It's bigger than most people understand, not with just Capital One and the other companies that are potentially at risk here, but Amazon runs the intelligence community's cloud data. So we have a whole separate issue with the intelligence communities probably being vulnerable to the same problem, and I know they're scrambling right now trying to figure out what to do and prevent this from being a problem for their own cloud data.
And Hiram, we've been covering a lot of mergers related to cloud computing. It's clearly a sector with a lot of growth potential, but for people to feel secure in this sector, what needs to be done to make the infrastructure secure, and who is it that should be responsible for making sure that people have confidence in the system?
Well, that's a loaded question. But the real answer is the customer basically has no control. The company who's storing their information has to be upfront on what information is being stored, and the company has to have the responsibility of storing that information either encrypted. But for the consumer, there's nothing that the consumer can really do, because anything that they do nowadays, they sign this legal agreement that's about 30 pages, and if they agree to it, in there it'll probably say that their data can be shared, or in any case, anything can happen to their data.
So Todd, while the tech sector does face a regulatory environment, when it comes to the cloud, should extra regulation be implemented to secure this data?
Well, I think that's tough at this point in time to say whether regulation is here. It's basic security that's at fault here, not just regulation. So I think we've got to go back to our security and revisit it and not necessarily the regulation.
Todd Shipley of Vera Software and Hiram Del Amo, thank you both so much for your time.
Thank you.
And